Hi everyone, welcome back to Comic Book Issues. It's time for another one of our vlogs. This time it's AntMan. I just saw it last night and I liked it, but it's not great. I enjoyed it. You're going to have a good time if you go see it. Essentially, Marvel put together a heist movie around a superhero. That's what this is. This is Ocean's 11 with ants, so Ocean's 11 million, I guess. There are a lot of ants in the world. Let's talk about the stars first off. Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. Actually, I should first mention that Paul Rudd and Anna Mackie, the director of the Anchorman movies, have a co-writing screen credit on this. I'm sure what happened is they took Edgar Wright's script and rewrote the jokes to work for Paul's sense of humor. Edgar has that very abstract British sense of humor that worked well in Spaced and Hot Fuzz, but it isn't right for Paul Rudd, so I'm sure they went in and redid the jokes for his sense of humor. First thing I should say is I'm glad that they didn't portray Paul Rudd as some sort of action hero like they did with Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't worry, I'm not going to go off on Guardians again. I like that Ant-Man is more of a thinking man's hero. He's following a plan, he has ideas, he comes up with inventions and clever ways of getting things done. It's not about fisticuffs entirely. There's a little of that, but it's about thinking things through. And Paul's able to portray Scott as, of course, a funny hero. He's a very funny actor. He projects a nice sense of desperation when he's trying to figure out how to get his daughter back in his life and realizing that it's just not going to be that easy. Evangeline Lilly played a character who's not in the comics, Hope Pym. She played Hank Pym's daughter. She was good, but I mostly found myself agreeing with her. She was so perfect for the Ant-Man suit, it seemed insane not to send her in. She had the combat skills. She had the ability to use the shrinking technology. Why not send her? For Hank, a scientist, not to even consider that, it really seemed irrational. But then, of course, it was an irrational fear that kept her out of that suit. He didn't want to lose his daughter the same way he lost his wife. Honestly, I didn't really feel any chemistry between Evangeline and Paul's characters, so that kiss at the end kind of came out of nowhere. I was kind of hoping, okay, let's do the superhero movie without the romance forced on. It kind of just didn't work for me at the end, but c'est la vie. It's a trope. You almost have to have it in there for some films. Maybe they'll work on the chemistry for the next one if they do an Ant-Man sequel. We'll see. Where her chemistry was really good was opposite Michael Douglas. They really portrayed the father-daughter dysfunctional relationship well. It's like they're these two people, and they have this problem, and the explanation is right there in front of them, but they can't see it because they're in this rut with each other. They're just so used to dealing with each other that they can't see around their own perceptions, and that's why they're having such trouble. It's something you see in parents of children all the time. They just can't see around their own issues. And she, more than anything, sold the danger of the main villain, Jason Cross. He comes off as a little too overly menacing at times, but she portrays herself as scared around him. She portrays herself as nervous around him, and that, more than anything, sold him as a villain in my mind, because otherwise his performance is too over-the-top and almost comically menacing to take seriously. But Evangeline's fear of him really helped sell the danger of Jason Cross. And man, Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, he was really good, but like Robert Redford in The Winter Soldier, I'm just amazed that they're getting these elder statesmen of actors in these silly little superhero movies. It's like getting the guy who played Lawrence of Arabia in your silly little animated film about a chef rat. He was really good. He really portrayed the relationship with Scott as his mentor, the son I never had, but also with his daughter and all the regrets he had about losing his wife. I mean, there's not much to say. Michael Douglas nailed the role, but it's a little weird because it's not the Hank Pym you're used to from the Marvel comic universe. This is like the Hank Pym if the Marvel universe were allowed to age normally and go ahead 20 years. This is the Hank Pym who's looking back at his life and has nothing but regrets. He regrets losing his wife. He regrets pushing his daughter away. He regrets pushing his protege away. But all of this was done in the name of keeping people safe and alive from the technology he himself created and then later recognized was too dangerous to let out there. He's a man whose accomplishments have come back to bite him in the ass. He has this longing to put things right, not for recognition, not for money, but just so he can sleep at night. He's just haunted by the things he's done. This is the Hank Pym who would have created Ultron, but they changed that around, of course. It's really a good performance, and bravo for getting Michael Douglas, because I think he's one of the best things about this movie. Corey Stoll as Jason Cross. He was all right. Like I said, he kind of portrays the evil, needy, mad scientist character a little too over the top at times. The only really plot hole that I recognize in the movie is they said that the exposure to the Pym particles when you're not shielded can drive you crazy, and that's what happened to him. But we didn't see any other scientists who were doing the testing going crazy, and we never really see him in the yellow jacket outfit until the very end of the movie. So when was he exposed to these particles? When did they drive him nuts? We never really get an answer as to why or when these particles started affecting him, and I kind of felt that's what was missing. Otherwise, he's just kind of this megalomaniacal, hands-wringing character. Oh, I've done it again. Now they'll all love me as I burn them to the ground. I mean, I recognize that the actor had to work with what he was given, but it's not a great character and it's not a great performance. It's okay, it doesn't take you out of the movie at all, but it's just it's a little much. Michael Pena as Luis, I apologize if I mispronounced any of that, was really funny. He and Team AntMan are the comic relief in the movie. Whenever he's telling those stories of how he meets people, that's hilarious. He's there to make you laugh, and he does. That's all you need to know. Anthony Mackie had basically one scene as the Falcon, and that felt very much like Marvel Studios sticking their foot into the script. You know Edgar Wright didn't write no scene where Ant-Man meets the Avengers. That was probably put in at the studio's request so they could work Ant-Man into the Marvel Universe proper. I'm not sure that, the Falcon's a big box office draw that people are going to run there once they see he was in the movie, but, it just felt very tacked on. We didn't need the Falcon in this. That's nothing against Anthony Mackie. He was great in The Winter Soldier. He's okay in this, but it was just a superfluous scene. Bobby Cannavale as Paxton, Judy Greer as Maggie, not Peggy Lang, and Abby Ryder-Fortson as Cassie Lang play Scott's extended family. If you've seen my Ant-Man and Young Avengers comic reviews, you know my favorite villain in the Marvel Universe is Peggy Lang, Scott's ex-wife and Cassie's mother. Here she's not even Peggy, she's Maggie Lang, and she's basically almost a little too supportive. She's fine with Scott. She's almost rooting for him to get his life in order so he can be a part of his daughter's life. Here, the bad guy is Paxton. He wants Scott out of their life. He wants to marry his ex-wife and be the father to his stepdaughter. And it's kind of a weird role because he obviously cares a lot about this little girl, but he's also treating her father like crap. And they make peace at the end, and it was almost like, couldn't they remain enemies? That was funnier. That was more drama. And now everyone's good with each other at the end, and that felt like a little bit of a letdown. Nothing ever wraps up that easily. As soon as he sees he's a superhero, he's like, hey, you're okay with me. I'm going to hide these things and make sure everything's okay so you could get back with your daughter. Like, wait, what? I thought you wanted him out of your life. It's in the comics, they know he's a superhero and they still don't like him. So, Abby was fine as Cassie Lang. There's not much you can say about a performer that young. She read the lines fine. She didn't take me out of the film. The family was okay. It was a little bland for my taste, and I kind of wish they still didn't like Scott at the end, except for Cassie, obviously. Now, John Slattery from Iron Man 2 reprised his role as Howard Stark, and they brought in Haley Atwell as an older Peggy Carter. They put her on the old age makeup. And for once, the old age makeup didn't look bad. She looked okay in her 60s. I mean, it looked believable. John Slattery as Howard Stark. It seemed odd that they would bring Haley in and put her under the old age makeup, but not Dominic Cooper, who played Howard Stark in Captain America, the First Avenger, and Agent Carter. But then he might be busy with the Preacher miniseries or movie or whatever they're doing. So maybe he wasn't available, and they said, well, we've already got an older Howard Stark, let's bring John back in. So I enjoyed seeing the building of the Triskelion. I enjoyed seeing those early days of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the falling out that Hank Pym had with them. And I also like that we got to see Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne as the Ant-Man and the Wasp in action in the 80s. It showed that there were superheroes around between Captain America, the First Avenger, and the first Iron Man film, that there was this gray area, but there were heroes operating then. I like that. Janet was not a character we could talk about easily. She just appeared in a flashback, but she was necessary to kind of build up the tension between Hope and her father, but that is what it is. If they do an Ant-Man sequel, I'm sure we'll see her back then. I'm sure they'll bring her back from that weird little dimension at the end, not of sight and sound, but of mind. And hey, young Michael Douglas, they first did that in X-Men The Last Stand with the young Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. At what point are we just going to do movies with CGI young versions of actors? We're going to do the Ghostbuster sequel with the original Ghostbusters when we just computer animate them, At what point is that going to happen? Because I feel like it is going to happen the more we use these young CGI versions of actors. It seems like it's going to be inevitable at some point. Again, that ending felt a little surreal with the tripping through the quantum spheres of size as he kept shrinking. I half expected Lily Tomlin to show up at some point. Look it up. One of the things I did like is they don't spell everything out for you right away. Like Hank Pym, you see he's wearing, a hearing aid. And you think, oh, he's an old man, he's got a hearing aid. But then it turns out that's how he controls the ants. So I like that they set that up and you don't think much of it, but then they do a little twist at the end and say, oh no, this is actually part of his superpower set. I did enjoy that little twist. My biggest problem was that they're trying to combine these three different genres. The first part of the movie felt like it was very humorous. The second part of the movie felt like it was very dramatic. You had all these revelations and hurt feelings and training montages. And then the third part felt like it was a full-out action film. I kind of wish they blended together a little better, but it seems like 3 specific segments slammed on top of a heist movie plot thread. I really wish we could have seen Edgar Wright's final version of this film, because I have a feeling he would have blended those 3 moods together much better. He's very good at that. It doesn't take you on the movie at all, but it is something I noticed. The first part's funny, the second part's serious, and the third part's action. Let's talk about the 2 bits during the end credits. I really like the thing with Hope at the end where we see she might become the Wasp. Again, I hope we see Ant-Man 2, because then we'll probably get Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp, and we'll probably see the return of Janet Van Dyne. That last bit at the end with Civil War, that was confusing. They didn't explain what the Accords were. They didn't explain what had happened with Tony Stark. They didn't explain how they found the Winter Soldier. They didn't explain why they needed Scott, really, other than he was a technical genius. It's like they cut a scene out of the movie and put it on the end without caring if we understood what was going on. That scene was very, very confusing. Okay, overall, I liked this film, but it wasn't great. I enjoyed the plot, but the mood, the themes of the film were a bit inconsistent. As I said, it changed about every third of the way through the movie. I'll say the same thing I said for Avengers Age of Ultron. This doesn't reinvent the superhero genre. You're not going to go in there seeing anything you haven't seen before. It's kind of a combination of The Louse Makes Good meets a heist film with superpowers tacked on. You're going to have a fun time seeing this movie, but it's not anything really special, I have to say. It's fun. I liked it. I think if you go see it, you'll like it. But for some people, this might even just be a rental a few months down the line. Okay, folks, the next film I'm going to see in a few weeks is Fantastic Four. We'll see how that reboot goes. Until next time, this is Comic Book Issues, and I'm your host, The Last Angry Geek.